let's play the Concertpalooza drinking game. Yeah, Concertpalooza drinking game. How many shows have I currently reviewed now? 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. How many shots of Jaeger I should do right now? I should do 4 shots. Those were shitty shots. However, I don't want to waste too much of your time. So, concert number 4, as I just said, was tonight. And that's, of course, the Darkness Reborn Tour 2010. And it featured DIMMU BORGIR, Enslaved, Blood Red Throne, and Dawn of Ashes. Man, I gotta like this. While that Jaeger courses through my veins, it will be my duty in order to recall this show for you in perfect pristine detail. And that's what I'm exactly going to do. Now, this was a tour that kind of was something that I heard about a little bit late. It was something that I didn't know of whenever I was initially buying tickets for my run-through of shows here over the past month and a half. That's going to continue up next with Overkill here in about 11 days. However, whenever I did learn about it, whenever I learned that DIMMU was coming through town, I was kind of like, it's alright, you know. It was something where I thought that if I missed it, I wouldn't be all that upset. Enslaved, however, being on there, holy shit, it was a guarantee I had to go. And I'm very happy that I did go. I mean, this is definitely a very solid show. I will say this, for one, the opening act, which of course is Dawn of Ashes, they had just about as much people there, as many people as their show there for their particular act, that were really there for maybe Black Anvil whenever we're talking about the Watain show. So there's a lot of people that had already coursed in from the get-go, and this ended up becoming way more than a packed house. I mean, this definitely reached its capacity, if not exceeding it a little bit. There was a lot of people that was at the show tonight, so that's definitely a good turnout, something that I sort of expected with DIMMU BORGIR, but I didn't expect it to be as packed as it was whenever I first walked through the door and Dawn of Ashes hit their first note. Onward to the music, actually. Dawn of Ashes, of course, was the first band that kicked off this particular tour, and from what I've listened from their stuff, which really isn't all that much, and the information that I've gotten from one of my friends was that they were more like an industrial metal band that really had very, very evil sounds to their music. They had a very demonic vibe to them. And then recently they were signed to Metal Blade Records, and their sound sort of got transformed a little bit into more of like a straight edge death metal sound. And I don't mean straight edge, like straight edge with the X's. I just mean like straightforward, you know what I mean? Like it's something where it's kind of cookie cutter a little bit, but it still has a little bit of that retention of their the old elements that they have. It was just a little bit more polished and a little bit more honed in on exactly what Metal Blade Records wanted. I really don't have too much to complain about this particular set. It's just something that they were really trying their best to amp the crowd up. They all were dressed in costume. There was a lot of there was a lot of people there that definitely liked the band, but for me it was just kind of, they were an opener, and this is probably one of the more disappointing openers that I saw. I mean, there's a couple things that made me want to bang my head a little bit, and maybe just throw up a horns, but it was more like courtesy horns, you know what I mean? Like, you go to see a band, and they're not necessarily terrible, so you throw up some courtesy horns just because, it's the type of thing that you do for a band like Dawn of Ashes that tries, and, really definitely sparked with a couple of the people that were there, but just not everybody. Definitely not something you do to like a Storm King, where basically they connected with just about nobody. So, as my Facebook status said earlier, Dawn of Ashes, you tried, time to move on. The second band that was on there tonight was Blood Red Throne. Now, if you guys may know the name Blood Red Throne, but if you don't, then I'll definitely update you a little bit. They currently have the Court in their ranks right now, who is a legend in the black metal scene, because he's been in bands such as Carpathian Forest as well as Emperor, and of course his most recent project was Green Carnation. Now, we all know who Green Carnation was because of Light of Day, Day of Darkness, and a couple of the albums that followed afterwards. However, Blood Red Throne was not a project I actually was 100% certain that he was in. Somebody mentioned that to me, and I immediately thought otherwise, and it was mainly because I made a very grievous error. And I will tell you what that grievous error was. I'll actually share a story with you guys. There was a show that came through town a couple of years ago that my buddy went to. I was in school at the time, and his fiancée now, but girlfriend at the time, ended up nearly getting crotch raped by one of the guys that was in this band. And I thought that the band was actually Blood Red Throne. And the one thing that he told me that stuck into my mind forever was that it was a really, really big fat guy that was doing this. So whenever I hear Blood Red Throne, I thought that's who it was. Then I saw a bunch of skinny guys, and I'm just like, well, that can't be right, so who was it? So I'm perusing my thought process throughout this entire show, which was fairly decent. I got to say, I got to give Blood Red Throne a lot of credit, because they're a band that I really don't listen to all that much. It's more of a straightforward death metal sound. Got to really admire the vocals that they have, not to mention with the Court being in the project, the music is always going to be significantly better and kind of a cut above the rest. However, I finally was able to realize midway through that the band that my buddy was actually speaking about, that I falsely had labeled as Blood Red Throne, was actually Full-Blown Chaos. Ugh. It's almost like comparing apples to oranges and calling both of them red. Doesn't work. But yeah, it was a very good showing, I gotta say, and they definitely got a little bit of support. They didn't get as much of the support as they got whenever they first went on. I think the crowd kind of just grew tired a little bit. But you also saw some pit action going on. It still wasn't exactly going nuts yet. But it was definitely a good atmosphere, and you definitely could tell what was to come. Because up next was Enslaved. I have been waiting, actually, for the entire month that I knew about the show just to see this band. And let me tell you, if I would have gotten tickets for this, or tried to get tickets for the show, and it would have been sold out, I would have been pissed off. I'd be throwing things around. I'd be taking out the cell phone that I found, and I'd just throwing it on the goddamn ground like that. And I did that basically to see if it would break, which it didn't. Bullshit. But at any rate, Enslaved comes on, and it's immediately incredible. I mean, this is just a great atmosphere. This is a very, very good band. Their guitar player, let me tell you, he's talented. He knows he's talented, but he really loves to get the crowd involved. He loves to do it. And the funny thing about this is a really, really gay pop culture reference, and it's like slander, basically, but I'm going to do it anyways. He's like, he had his shirt off, and he's, trying to look tough, trying to look badass, but it just kind of made him look like a Norwegian, like Jacob Black or something like that. Luckily enough, he has a lot more character. He's not worshipping a girl named Bella, not turning into a werewolf, and not doing anything moderately, idiotic. He's a fantastic guitar player. Just sounded fantastic. There was a lot of significance to this particular gig, it seemed. Enslaved, I don't recall Enslaved ever being here, with the exception of once with Opeth, which I unfortunately missed, which, if you know me, you're probably thinking, how the hell is that even possible? But it happened. I missed it, and I regret it. However, the one thing that also pisses me off is the fact that they got a longer set with Opeth, because they really didn't get that long of a set tonight. They really stuck to a lot of the stuff that they had done between Run or Rune, however you want to call it, and the newest record. So it's just, they were kind of limited to the previous 3 releases that they had put out. So it was a little disappointing in that regard. Hearing some stuff from, say, Monumentation would have been pretty awesome, or even Below the Lights, but for what it was worth, for my first Enslaved experience, they left a lasting impression. I do have a video of them performing their sound Ground off of the Vertebra record, so definitely look for that if you haven't looked already. And then we move on to DIMMU BORGIR. Now, DIMMU BORGIR, don't get me wrong, it's not a band that I listen to all that often anymore. I think it's kind of like Cradle of Filth, where my phase of listening to them and Cradle nonstop kind of ended a number of years back. But I did, as you know, review the latest album, and I definitely gave it a gentleman's try. It was something where the statements were very easy for me to make. I miss ICS Vortex. It's just not the same, and it just doesn't have the same vibe for me. A lot of people love the new record. People went fucking nuts for Dimmu whenever they came out, and I'll be honest with you, it's one of those atmospheres where you kind of can't help but do the same, so I definitely did as well. They played a lot of good stuff. They played a lot of older stuff. They didn't just stick to In Sorte Diaboli or Abracadabra. They definitely went back to Death Called Armageddon. They went back to Puritanical, Euphoric Misanthropia. They went all the way back to Spiritual Black Dimensions and the older stuff as well. I mean, they had a good long period of time. They had over an hour and a half. They were able to do an encore that was pretty fantastic. Did Progenies of the Great Apocalypse, Puritania. Just some really, really good stuff. And they also played one of my favorite tracks, which is off of Death Called Armageddon. It's in Norwegian. I'm not going to bastardize it, but let me tell you, you probably know what I'm talking about. I know you know what I'm talking about, and I know some asshole's going to comment it and look like a fucking genius, but I can't read Norwegian, man. I'm not even going to try, because you assholes will just be like, you need to learn how to pronounce this stuff. Fuck you. Overall, though, I gotta say this. I mean, I understand that you got rid of ICS Vortex and everything like that, guys. You got rid of Mustus, and you used the backing sample for the female vocals for Gateways, which is cool, you know, because obviously she's not going to come on tour with you unless she's really, really dedicated and becoming a full-time member of the band, which is not going to happen. But Shaggoth doing ICX Vortex's parts in kind of a, you know, his traditional black metal style just does not have the same feel. I'm not saying this is necessarily going to turn this whole entire performance into a disappointment, but it definitely was something that stood out to me as a really, really big negative. If you're going to use the sample of the girl for Gateways, for the female vocals for Gateways, please just do the same for ICS Vortex's part. I beg of you, because it just does not sound the same without his voice on those particular songs. That is the way that I like the songs, it's the way that I've heard the songs. If you listen to your fans, please, everybody out there, if you're fans of this band and you want to see them live, please beg for them to do that. Because it just is not the same without it. And it, honestly, whenever they played Progenies of the Great Apocalypse, it kind of ruined it. It's a great song, but it was kind of ruined. I won't lie. Overall, though, great show. Definitely was worth the money. It was definitely worth going down, checking it out. There's going to be pictures immediately following me signing off here from the show. The pictures are going to be up on Facebook. There's going to be the Enslaved video of them performing the Sound Ground. Once again, like everything else, you know, take it for what it's worth, because I'm sure the sound quality sucks. I was right by a goddamn speaker. I'm halfway goddamn deaf. I love this shit. This is fucking awesome. I'll see you guys next time whenever I go tackle Killfest with Overkill at Diesel Nightclub here coming up in about 10 days or so. Or is it 8? Who the hell cares? I'm going.